Look, isn't it funny how in the news matters regarding defence are at present? We have the whining, not from the engines of our Air Force 757s, but from the news media who tend to, on a regular basis, get stuck on the tarmac as the planes blow fuses or break down or are unserviceable. We also have a new deployment to Korea. We have a new intelligence sharing agreement with Japan. And Mark Mitchell, who we spoke to earlier, is just back from a, I think slightly misnamed peace summit in Switzerland regarding the conflict in Ukraine. So I thought it would be a useful time for us to have an interview and have a chat with our Minister of Defence, Judith Collins, who joins us on the line now. Minister, good morning to you.
Oh, good morning, Sean.
All right, look, primarily I wanted to talk to you about the planes. And as someone who used to travel with Jim Bolger on the Boeing 727s, and even back then we would write disparaging stories about what we nicknamed Spud 1. And I always looked at the 757s and thought, they've got it easy nowadays. Those look flash. It's not the old 727. But they really are now on a monotonously regular basis incapable of doing the task they were assigned, aren't they?
Well, the job that they're assigned is not just taking the Prime Minister, the media and business delegations overseas. 80% of its work in the last year has been carrying troops around and equipment. So, it's had 96 flights in the last 3 months, the last time it had an issue. And this was the one that actually happened. So it always seems to happen with full-on media glare, people upset, and it's like Murphy's Law, isn't it? As soon as someone's watching, something happens.
All right, so you are, and I don't think you're making excuses, but you're saying the nature of when it's used for media trips means that it gets disproportionate or perhaps the problems with the plane are disproportionately covered?
Well, I'm saying that when the Prime Minister's on a very important mission, and we've got a whole stack of some of New Zealand's top business people there and the media, it does get a lot of coverage. If it's our troops who are inconvenienced for a day or half a day, people just they just take it in their stride. But they're not. This is not as mission critical in terms of the time that the Prime Minister's work and the business people's work is. So that's the point, really. But look, they are old. They're 32 years old. They were 10 years old when they were bought under the Helen Clark government, and they were, they had a hard life then, and they've been nursed along, petted and looked after by our excellent engineering people, and they're still doing good work, but they cannot last forever, and we do need to rethink how we operate.
Is Defence and is the government looking at, and I made the suggestion on Twitter the other day, it had some positive response. I thought, why don't we buy the airliners that are compatible with the fleet that, say, Air New Zealand, our national carrier, has? We also the government owns Air New Zealand, or a fair chunk of it. Why don't Defence buy planes that are compatible with them, so you save money on the maintenance, so there are spares, so that reliability and servicing issues are simplified?
These are good questions to be asked, and what I'd say is one of the problems with the Boeing 757s is spare parts are becoming harder to get because they're so old. They are, as I said the other day.
So why don't we retool with planes similar, or of Airbus planes like Air New Zealand has, and then we don't have that problem?
I don't know about you, Sean, but there is no silver bullet in this, because I've certainly had plenty of flights with Air New Zealand and other airlines that have been cancelled or delayed due to engineering issues, and I'm sure you have too. But I do think that there's some good thinking there, and that will be part of the thinking around the Defence Capability Plan and where we go forward.
All right. How urgent is the decision on the transport fleet for the RNZAF?
I think we need to get moving on it reasonably fast, and we've got this. I've seen the very first draft of the Defence Capability Plan. There's some more rethinking going in there. We've got a new Secretary of Defence coming in the next couple of weeks, so we think it's important to have his input too. Look, we need to get on, because you can't just go down to the shop and buy one of these planes. You've got to book them. You've got to do whatever, and we could pick up some more second-hand planes. The question is, are we buying a problem or someone else's problem?
As I say, I just think some interoperability with Air New Zealand would be an elegant solution. It would work in some ways. Yes, it would work in some ways. But then also bear in mind that these planes go into Antarctica. Yeah.
They went into Noumea during the uprising there, or the unrest there. These are not places that Air New Zealand or any other commercial airline is necessarily want to go and land in. So, we've got to be really reasonable and at the same time understand. I think it's a good point, though. You want your spheres pretty close to you.
Yeah. Look, I want to talk about some other defence issues. Can you describe for me what this deployment to Korea is about?
Well, we've got a couple of deployments there. So there's the one that I announced the other day with up to 35 extra of our people off to Korea to be part of the UN command in South Korea, the DMZ. But then there's also the other one, which is around the sanctions work, monitoring, using the P8, which is basically a submarine hunter and has enormous amounts of electronic kit on it. And then, we've also got ships going there. It's like we are, I think, really starting to pull our weight, despite the fact that we have pretty old kit in most cases, except for the P8s and the brand new
and they are
that are about to turn up.
Yeah. Minister, critics of the government have looked at those deployments and have said we are abandoning our neutrals. And I think Helen Clark has been and her mates have been particularly vocal about this, and says we now have a foreign policy and a defence policy that is aligned and not non-aligned. What is your response to those criticisms?
Well, I think they're just simply wrong. So we've never been non-aligned. We're very clearly aligned with our Five Eyes relationship that is 70 years old. Our ally, a military ally, formal ally, is Australia. Of course, we do not live in that silly, benign strategic environment that Helen Clark once commented on not long before 9/11 happened. We live in a real world, and we do not live in some sort of fairyland where everyone plays fair. If anyone needs to be reminded of it, just think about Ukraine and what happened there and what is still happening there. Fact is that there are people in the world who will take advantage of vulnerabilities, and unfortunately they think that might is right, and we've got to be part of a team, as we always have been, that actually stands up for liberal democratic values, and we do.